Hello, and welcome to Church at Home with Rachel for Wednesday, the 12th of July. Glad to see you all here. I hope you're having a good summer so far. I'd like to talk a little bit today about our identity as people, specifically as Christians, but for those of you who aren't, I think that this can apply in your lives as well, I hope. Anyway, we'll see. But I just kept thinking about who we are and the complexity of who we are in the definitions of who and the sense of what makes us be who we are. And it comes from a conversation I was having with my husband about um, being a chaplain in the military, um, and sort of grappling with what that means. See, if you're a chaplain in the military, you're automatically, at least the Canadian military, you're automatically an ordained or licensed person in your own denomination, whether it's Judaism or Islam or Christianity. And in the Canadian Armed Forces, they have two branches. There's the Catholic, the Roman Catholic, and then they're all part of the same branch, but there's a Roman Catholic and then Protestant. So Anglican falls into Protestant, although us Anglicans would argue that we're a separate bunch, but we fall into the Protestant group. But the thing is, you can't be a chaplain in the Canadian Armed Forces unless you are already acknowledged, ordained, accepted, and licensed in a denomination or in a faith gathering outside of the military. Like you can be a military member doing, like, say you're an infantry person or you're a pilot in the Air Force or something, and feel called to become a chaplain, but you still have to go through seminary training or whatever training is appropriate to your faith group. You have to have 2 years in the parish or in very specific ministry in that field, and you have to have all the chaplain training. After you've completed chaplain training, then you're considered a chaplain. But when you come into the military, you are commissioned as an officer. And part of learning how to be a chaplain, part of the training, is to have your officer training, to learn how to be an officer. And we have this great debate about, well, if you're a chaplain, because there's some chaplains out there who are like, but I'm a pastor, I'm a chaplain. But at the same time, if you're a member of the military, you're also an officer. So your standard, you have to live up to that standard. You have to be sir or ma'am. You have to live up to those things. So you have to learn how to be an officer and learn how to be a chaplain. And then you have to do that thing of learning how to bring them both together, to live those together in with integrity. And over the years, I have seen some incredible pastors really struggling with how to be a military chaplain because it seems to be anathema to them to be an officer, to that military part, to which I was wondering, like, why are you the military then? Why not like a hospital chaplain or prison chaplain? But this idea that you have to be able to live into both identities at the same time, and do so with integrity. But I don't think that's unique to the vocation of being a military chaplain. And I don't think it's unique to be the vocation of being like a priest or a rabbi or an imam, where we live out our faith intentionally on purpose as they say in the military, the SME, the subject matter expert, for the group of people that we serve. But it's also the coming together of who we are as believers and leaders in faith, and who we are as individuals, as people, who I am as a wife and a best friend, as a stepmother, as a neighbor, as a citizen, as well as being a priest. And those two things are intertwined. For instance, not so much in Vermilion and Wainwright, where I work, I live in Wainwright, and I work in Vermilion, Wainwright, and Edgerton as a priest. But because Vermilion and Wainwright are bigger places, and in Vermilion, I'm still getting to know people. So I'm still that Anglican priest over there at St. Saviour's. In Wainwright, people are getting to know me. There's been enough things happening that people are starting to recognize me. And it's actually kind of freaky because sometimes I forget, that I have to live in harmony, with, who I am as person and who I am as priest, because I go places and people know who I am. And it's like, I don't know who you are. And then I find out that they, have seen me on YouTube or on Facebook, or they've seen me at a funeral, or they've heard about something that's been happening in the church, and that's where they know me from. In Edgerton, though, Edgerton's a village, and Edgerton is the most sort of integrated place in that way because it's so small. Everybody knows what everybody's doing. Everybody knows everybody, and everybody's impacted by what happens. For instance, the funeral I had on Monday was like most of the village, it seemed, was there. And people from lots of other places were there. People I've seen at other funerals, people I've met in other places, because when something happens to one, something happens to all. There's a sense of a real sense in a village or in a hamlet, in that small community, that recognition that you can't separate what you do from who you are, because everybody knows you and they know all of you, and that can be a tough thing, but for the most part it's a really beautiful thing. But it's a reminder for those of us who don't, like, I don't live in Edgerton, so I see people, they know who I am, and I'm starting to get to know who they are. But because I'm not in the community all the time, it's a bit more difficult. But that sense of understanding the importance of that village, like the global village, it takes a village to raise a child, all that stuff. There's something to that, because if we can wrap our heads around the fact that when people look at us, they don't simply see the us, the part of us that is our job. Like when people look at me, they don't only see Rachel the priest. When my neighbors look at me, they don't only see like Rachel the next door neighbor. They see all of who I am, because they're going to get to know me. You know, my picture might be in the paper, or they might see something I posted on Facebook or on YouTube, and that expands their understanding of who I am. And they can never undo that. They're never going to be able to unsee or unhear or unknow that about me, which means that I have to live an integrated life. I have to learn to live with all of the parts of who I am working together in harmony. I can't have like two different personalities and be, there's the Rachel who smiles when she walks out the door, and then a different Rachel who closes the door behind her and gets all snarly on her husband. Well, sometimes that does happen, but not generally speaking. Generally speaking, I'm pretty integrated. At least I hope I am. But this idea that we have to live in the world but not be of the world. We have to be aware that who we are, in the essence of who we are, the part of who we are, needs to be, we need to work on it. Says, I don't think it comes naturally, but we need to work on our ability to be honest and to be sincere and to truly be the person we were created to be in every aspect of our lives. It's like going back to that sort of the idea of the chaplain. If you have a chaplain in the military who sees him or herself, sees themselves as, if they see themselves as pastors within this thing that happens to be where they go to work, that's going to have a very, very different, the way their effectiveness as a chaplain is going to be hampered, because they're not reaching out to people who are simply sitting in the pews on Sunday. They're reaching out to people whose very lives have been offered, people who wear the uniform, with the knowledge that one day wearing that uniform could take them someplace, and something that could happen to them where they may not come home. And that is the reality of their workplace. And part of that means that they have to live up to being able to be an officer, which means being able to know how to approach someone else, and how to be approached, how to hold authority, which a lot of pastors, we don't like doing that. It's like, we want to be with you, we want to, but there are times when you have to just say so. You just have to be the authority. And there are times, I swear to you, I don't do it very often, but there are times when I will say, because I am your priest, I am telling you, you must. Now I know the Christian church has gotten a really bad rap, because there's all kinds of times when that has been abused, that authority has been abused. And right now there are many churches of specific, or not specific, but of certain bents, that are really throwing that around and saying, because I am who I am as your pastor, you will vote this way, or you will think this way, or you will choose to treat other people this way. And I think that that's an abuse of that power. But when authority is held gently and appropriately and with integrity, it benefits everyone around us. So just like that chaplain, who 75% of the time gets to be the padre, just gets to be the chaplain. But 25% of the time, they need to also be the captain or the major or the lieutenant commander or the lieutenant colonel, someone who has to hold authority over someone else because it's for the good of them. It's for their own good. We have to own that. We have to realize what are all the parts of who we are and how do we have them come together and not say, well, right now, like talking to our kids, right now I'm your mom, but in 10 minutes I'm going to be your best friend. We all know that doesn't work, right? And if you think it works, then we need to talk. We always need to be the mom or the dad or whoever the authority figure might be, but we need to hold that authority with gentleness and with integrity so that we can also be friendly and we can also be the person that that person comes to when they need to talk and they need comfort. But we can also be the person that they come to when they need to be disciplined or they need to know something that they don't know. They can recognize that we're safe authority figures. When we figure out who we are as Christians, for those of you who are, when you figure who you are as a Christian, it has to be integrated in the rest of your life. You can't just say, I'm going to believe in Jesus. I'm going to follow follow the 10 commandments. I'm going to follow the golden rule, in this place, but, it just doesn't apply at work. That doesn't work. If we are one, we are all. If we are in for the penny, we're in for the pound. We have to learn how to be integrated people. We need to learn how to live with integrity, whether that means you're a Christian or, an atheist or an agnostic or whatever it is you are. You need to learn how to live your best life. And living your best life will mean you're living with integrity, integrated parts of you working together, not part of you over here and part of you over here, whichever the situation demands. But whatever the situation demands, you bring all of you to the table. Some aspects of you might be called upon more than the others at that time, but all of you will be there. How are you integrated? How much integrity are you living in your life? Do you think you can do more? Or are you pleased with where you're at? It's not a judgment, it's just a question. I think I'm pretty good, but I always have more work to do. How about you? Have a great day. God bless, and I will see you again tomorrow for Church at Home with Rachel.